So the last section in Unit 2 that we're going to talk about is delivery and presentation. The first part of this lesson deals with types of delivery. The first type of delivery we'll look at is extemporaneous delivery. When you are doing extemporaneous, means you use an outline. So if you go up and you present your speech and you have a note card in your hand, which just kind of has your main points on there, we're looking at extemporaneous. Some nice thing about extemporaneous delivery is that you can vary your delivery based on your audience's reaction, which means you can read your audience's reaction because one, you're giving them eye contact, and second, you're able to read their nonverbals. Some negatives to that could be with using extemporaneous delivery is that you still have to look down from time to time at your outline, which means you will have to disengage from your audience a little bit. Also, if you are the type that gets nervous when you present, it could end up you're looking at your notes a little more often, which means you're reading rather than engaging with your audience. Type of delivery is manuscript. Manuscript is where you have the written text and you read from it. Most of you, when you guys do your formal presentations in here, you guys will use manuscript, which means you'll just take an entire copy of your speech, take it up to the podium, and read it. The nice thing about manuscripts, if you have evidence, if you have quotes that you must use word for word, this is a helpful style to use. Probably the most positive thing about a manuscript is that you have your entire speech in front of you. So if you are the type that gets nervous, you'll always have that comfort of having the entire speech right there in front of you. Negatives to that, generally, you're not going to be looking at your audience as much, if at all. If you are reading from paper, generally you're going to speak a little faster. And then once again, you're with that limited eye contact, you're not really paying attention to your audience's nonverbals. Most of you will be using manuscript. It's worth pointing out that when you have your speech up there at the podium, how you hold your paper is very important. You do not want to have your paper up, blocking your face, covering your face, because then the audience can't see you. You don't want to be holding the papers, of course, too close to your face. So also, you don't want to have the papers down at the podium and then you're bent down, staring down at your paper. Because once again, the audience won't really be able to see you and it'll just create less engagement. When you hold papers, you don't want to hold them with both hands, so you don't want to grip the sides of the paper together. Generally, it's a little more comfortable if maybe you're holding it just with one hand and leaving the other hand open for hand gestures. Another type of delivery is impromptu. With impromptu, this is unprepared and unrehearsed speech, no outline, no manuscript. Basically, everything is just done off the top of your head. Generally, impromptu is a little more conversational style. Some nice things about it: it's more informal, it's audience friendly, you're always looking at your audience, you're always engaged with your audience. And one of the cool things about impromptu speaking is if you know enough about the topic, it can show your knowledge of the subject. Some negatives of that, though, with showing your knowledge of the subject, is that if you don't know a lot about it, it can show how much you really know, or how much you don't know. Also, there's a lack of preparation with it. A lot of times with impromptu, it's going to lack some of those proper speech components. We talked about every speech having an introduction, a body, conclusion. With impromptu speaking, sometimes that can go out the window. The last type of delivery that we're going to look at is memorized. Memorized, kind of like impromptu, you don't have an outline of any type. However, you do have text that you've written out beforehand, a speech that you've written out beforehand, and you just kind of memorize that text. You've just kind of submitted it to memory, which means when you go up and present, you don't need to have that paper in hand. Some positives of that, once again, complete engagement with the audience through eye contact. It also shows that you have experience. It shows that you have confidence in what it is that you're talking about. But, some negatives of that are if it's a speech that you've rehearsed a lot and you're just kind of bored with it, when you actually get up and present it, it might sound dull or it could sound rehearsed. Also, there is the possibility with a memorized speech that you could forget what it is that you're talking about, and you can kind of go into panic mode and just kind of shut down. Or, we missed some of those parts of the speech because you kind of skipped over some stuff because you forgot what it is that you were supposed to say. So next, what we're going to look at are some elements of vocal delivery. With this set of notes, I've attached a video, so make sure definitely that you watch that video about how to speak so people will want to listen. It goes into a lot of great detail, and it's done very entertaining as well. So make sure and watch that video while doing these notes. So the first element that we're going to talk about is register. The register just runs the gambit. It talks about everything. So we're talking about your pitch, your rate, your volume, the pauses, etc. when you give a speech. So it all encompasses your register. We have a vocal variety. That means that you're changing things. You're altering your pitch. You're altering your rate. You're altering your volume, pauses, stuff like that. When we talk about tone, we're talking about the highness or lowness of your voice. When we're talking about rate, we're talking about the speed, how fast you talk, how slow you talk, and stuff like that. When we're looking at volume, we're talking about how loud or soft you speak. Enunciation is, of course, important when it comes to delivery, being able to pronounce the words and the sentences correctly. Using pauses in the right place, brief moments as a silence between those words, phrases, paragraphs can emphasize things quite well when it comes to presenting a speech. Things like grammar notation, it can indicate that. It can give an audience a chance to think about what it is that you said. Also, pauses give you a break to kind of collect yourself. There's nothing wrong with taking a pause to kind of collect and regroup to what it is that you're talking about. Also, a pause can show an audience a break between different subjects and points throughout your presentation. There are some different elements of nonverbal delivery that we had to discuss. One of them is how you dress. When you guys dress, you want to make sure that you're wearing clothes that are comfortable. You don't want to wear clothes that are noisy. Any kind of fabric that when it rubs together can make any kind of swishing sound or a loud noise, you probably not want to do, because when you present a speech, sometimes you might have some nervous tendencies of swaying and stuff like that. Of course, no hats. Pull your hair back from your face. Something that's very distracting when you're speaking is a lot of you, when you look down to speak, your hair will fall in front of your face and you use your hand and constantly be pulling your hair back. It's usually good just to have your hair pulled back to begin with. Things like jackets, jewelry, usually you don't want to be wearing those things because you have a tendency to play with them and fidget with them. You're rolling your ring around your finger, or maybe you're playing with the pendant on your necklace. With jackets, you could be playing with the zippers or grabbing the bottom of your jacket and kind of rubbing at it. Those are things that could be a distraction. When it comes to facial expressions, you want to make sure that whatever facial expressions that you are conveying has meaning to the audience. So if you're talking about things that are sad, you don't want to have a smile on your face or want to be laughing. You want to show, you want that facial expression to be appropriate to whatever it is that you're talking about. Another thing that I look for in your presentation is your posture. Your posture is your body's arrangements when you stand. You want to make sure that you're standing up straight. You don't want to be leaning against anything. You don't want to be leaning on the podium. You want your feet flat on the floor. Make sure that you're facing the audience. Don't kind of turn your shoulder or rest your arm on the podium. Make sure that you're standing up straight with your shoulders square facing us. Also, make sure you don't want to rock. You don't want to sway back and forth. Don't stand on one foot. Basically, just stand up straight, face us, and yeah, don't lean on the podium. One thing that I do like when you guys present are to show gestures. Hand gestures are basically those emotions that add emphasis or meaning to what it is that you're going to say. There are things when it comes to gestures. Basically, if you want to rest your hands at the podium, that's fine. Clasp them together, have them at your side. That's all good as well. When you initiate gestures, basically you want to use what's known as the gesture zone. Keep your gestures basically from your shoulder to your waist. When you are done with gestures, make sure to just put your hands in that position again. Rest them at the podium, at your sides. Make sure your gestures are settled. There's no need to flail your arms, but also in the same instance, you don't want to keep your hands just rested at your side the whole time. A good way to add emphasis, a good way to add meaning to your speech is to put in some hand gestures. Another thing is movement. For a lot of you, when you guys present, you won't have a lot of movement in your speech since you will be standing at the podium. If you guys want to do movement, of course, I condone that. By all means, please move from side to side if you want to on the podium. Don't feel like you have to stay anchored there. Of course, lots of movement can be very bad. Constantly pacing back and forth on a stage is very, very distracting. But like I said before, you can move to either side of the podium if you want to. You're not going to really be using any visual aids in this one, so you don't have to really worry about that. But when it comes to movement, if you do plan on moving, make sure and keep it limited. Eye contact, definitely. I do like eye contact. It conveys meaning to the audience. It's a good way for you to be able to read your audience's nonverbals. Just make sure if you do eye contact, you don't just focus all your attention on one side of the room. Make sure you're giving equal love to everyone on both sides. And then just don't get focused on one side too much. So what are the best things to do to prepare before your speech? The first thing you want to do is relax. Think about your speech. Don't overthink it. You guys aren't probably going to be doing warm-up exercises, but basically preparing to talk. And you probably maybe want to do a little conversation to warm up your voice a little bit. You can prepare your body with warm-up exercises if you want to. But like I said, for a majority of you, it's just going to be, you'll get up, you'll present your speech. But generally, practice. The main thing that you want to do is practice, and using your voice, moving around a little bit is good, and practicing running through your speech is good warm-up. Be comfortable in your breathing patterns. Like I said, though, a lot of that just comes from just relax. On the days of your speech, pace around a little bit when you're practicing. Move around a little bit. That's all part of that warm-up. And then, once you're ready to begin, don't just rush into your speech. Take a few moments, move up to the podium, look at your audience, make sure that you're confident, and then go ahead and deliver. So the thing about speeches are that it's the number one fear of Americans. Getting up in front of an audience and presenting is more scarier to people than death. I myself, I agree with it. every time I get in front of a class, every time I'm about to present something, there's a little anxiety in me. But you want to know what? It's normal. Most people get speech anxiety. And most of the time, once you get started, once you get going, a lot of that anxiety goes down. It's just that, initial feeling of stress, that nervousness, that comes right before you present. A lot of that is reduced once you just get going and you just do it. Remember, once again, things that are going to help you: prepare, practice. The more you prepare, the more you practice, the better your speech is going to be. When you're up there, your introduction is probably going to be the thing that the audience listens to, or it's going to pay the most attention to. So make sure that is that when you prepare that the most. If you begin strong, the audience is more likely to go along and be more comfortable with what it is that you're talking about. If you get nervous, watch your rate of delivery. Don't go too fast. Don't go too slow. There's no need for you to just speed through your speech. There's no need for you to get so anxious and nervous, you start to stutter and trip over your words. If that happens, if you feel if you're doing that either way, stop. Just regather yourself real quick and then go back at it. No one's going to think any less of you. Remember, we've talked about this before. Everyone's in the same boat. We're all here to support one another. So, just do the best you can to keep that rate constant, but not too fast, yet not too slow. Don't let distractions make you nervous. If you are talking and somebody's cell phone makes a ding, don't let it get you nervous. Don't let it get you angry. If something's ringing, just stop what you're doing. Let that go ahead and finish, and then go ahead and continue on. You're giving a speech, something comes over the intercom, don't worry about it, just stop, let the message happen, and then go back to delivering your speech. So, this is the delivery and presentation lesson. Make sure that you get all the notes down, and yeah, thank you.